Alright, so this video is all about how Manchester United can become great again with Ruben Amorim. Now, for a lot of people, myself included, there are doubts on whether both are possible at the same time. With Ruben Amorim, with the 3-4-3 system, is it possible? And today's game gave as much hope as a loss could to a Manchester United fan. 1-0 loss to Arsenal, but still you're left here sitting thinking it is what it is. All things considered, all the hype of the preseason, you actually put out a performance that was the right intensity, the right level of effort of the talk. Luke Shaw talked about it all off season, that there were no more passengers, that everyone that was still at Manchester United wanted to make it feel like Manchester United. And as much as a loss can, it did make it feel like Manchester United. This isn't about the game. I want to focus on the tactics. I want to focus on what 3-4-3 means for Ruben Amorim. And as you saw in the thumbnail, Antonio Conte is the king of 3-4-3. So we'll be once or twice, maybe even 3 times, talking about what Conte did at each of his teams. He did it at Juve, he did it at Chelsea, and he did it at Inter. He's the god of 3-4-3. Do I want him for Manchester United? No, but there are certain things you have to respect and learn from if you're going to do these systems. And the first one is you need to have that star power in between the lines. You look at those teams, I talked about it, right? Chelsea, who did they have? They had Hazard, the best player in the league at the time. You look at the most recent example, Inter Milan, they had Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez, who, for God's sake, were 2 of the top 10, top 5 players in the league that season. And then you go back to Juve. Who did Juve have in between the lines? Paul Pogba, at 22 years of age, playing every single game. Arturo Vidal, whose name in the thesaurus comes up as box to box. And Tevez wasn't shy to drop back either. All right, so that is the caliber of player you need in those spaces. And up until today, I was like, no one really fits that mold for Manchester United, not even the new signings, not even Mbumo. But Matheus Cunha, however, gave and delivered a performance that made you think, yeah, this is the guy who will take the ball and take onus, take responsibility, and make that 2-man midfield that every 3-4-3 suffers feel like a 3 or 4-man midfield with the way he's coming short for the ball and driving with it. That territory which, you look at the other teams in the league over the past few years, Rodri, Fernandinho, Rice, number 5 from Arsenal last season, they all made it their home. They all made it a place where no attacker was welcome. Cunha felt at home there, which is rare. And if he can do that, that is the ask, okay? Is anyone at Manchester United capable of reaching that level? I talked about Hazard, Lukaku, Paul Pogba. Can you reach the top of the league in those positions? That is what we're asking of Cunha. Are you ready to play with your back to goal? And as I said, can you do it by yourself? This is not a group assignment anymore. We're not just passing to the open man. It's all about what you can do by yourself. Creating something out of nothing is what this system requires. Individual brilliance in a nutshell. The second position, and I know you're thinking right now, he hasn't talked about the midfield. He hasn't talked about the goalkeeper. You already know those problems are there. But the second problem for me in terms of positions is the wingbacks. I think it's unfair, but the wingbacks need to be wingers more than they are defenders. And I think it's unfair on Dalot and Patrick Dorgu, who's, 20 years old, to ask them of that. But if you go back and look at those Conte teams, Inter had Hakimi. You remember Hakimi? He was putting up numbers with Jadon Sancho, and then he moved to Inter. And alongside Perisic, you've got 22 goals and assists. Chelsea, Moses was a winger on the right. Marcus Alonso wasn't much of a defender on the left as well. More than 15. They get to 14 goals and assists. And in terms of goal contributions, the Juve team in 2014 that gets over 100 points in the league. Corruption? No. Maybe, who knows. But Asamoah, Lichtsteiner, 15 goals and assists. Are you looking at Patrick Dorgu right now? Unless you have him in your FPL like I do, are you looking at him and thinking, yeah, this is a guy that can get close to 10 goal contributions a season? And on the right, the same question has to be asked of Dalot because he's not a natural wingback. If Ahmad's playing there, maybe you feel a bit more comfortable. But whoever it is in these two positions, the ask of them is to be one of the best wingback slash wingers in the league. That is the difference maker. That is the differential between good and great teams, and for Manchester United, probably between poor and average teams at this stage. It's fair to say. Other things for Manchester United, the striker position. We started against Arsenal, right, without a striker, and it actually low-key, like, it was fun. It was fun. You know, when you don't play with a striker, the flow of the ball is so nice. Everyone's willing to pass, but there is no box presence. There is no box presence, and that you just can't have. If you're going to have such isolated attackers, the one thing they need to know their way around is the box. And Benjamin Sesko comes in, another striker that's younger than me, which basically means I have no faith in them to do anything. But it is what it is. He's a young striker from Bundesliga. He's got a 6'5" frame. He has to be a weapon inside the box. Now, put Antonio Conte to one side. I do love referring to him, but think about what Amorim needed from Victor Gyökeres, who, by the way, is a bum. You know, categorically, after one game of watching him, he's a bum. He's a bum. Portuguese league, bums. He's a bum. João Felix, again, just want to remind you, you're a bum as well. But Gyökeres did a lot of things for Amorim and is probably one of the main reasons why Amorim's at United right now with the success they had at Sporting together. What did he do? Gyökeres for Amorim, he was willing to sacrifice his body, his energy, his 90 minutes towards dueling anyone, running in channels, which is really, really asking a lot of a striker that just wants to be in the box. It's a lot of faith to put in a manager just to follow their plan blindly, but then you see him reap the rewards on the other end. Because when they did get higher up the pitch, they let him shoot, and shoot he did. Both seasons, you've seen the numbers. I'm not gonna say them to you because they're crazy numbers, and it's why the Portuguese league needs to be defunded if he is a bum. But you look at what Amorim did for Gyökeres on the flip side, right? Gyökeres, that first season that they win the league, has about 109 shots. Only 23 of those shots for Victor Gyökeres are off the dribble. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, that's pretty normal for a striker, which it is. They don't really create that much off the dribble. It's a lot of crosses. It's a lot of one-touch shots. But for Gyökeres, it just goes to show how much that team needs to feed the striker in the box. And you heard Amorim say, we're not crossing the ball to Sesko. Just as he comes on, we sort of stopped crossing. Instead, we were doing it more when Mason Mount was on the pitch, which is, you know, like I said, the flow is so much better when you don't have a striker on the pitch. But now is the time you forget about the most efficient play. Okay, you let your best players make the best decisions and do things by themselves. You have to give Sesko that platform to do his thing. And as we wrap up this point, we go again to the man, Antonio Conte at Chelsea in the 3-4-3. Diego Costa, if there was one word to describe him, it's bully. Bully. He's a bully, and we don't like it on the playground, but in terms of strikers, goalkeepers, you want to have a bully. You want to have a bully. You want to have a guy who can score 20 league goals, right? And do it in a number of ways. Be a menace in the box, have a finish from outside the box, and in the most physical league, make every defender from every team, regardless of where they are on the league table, look physically inferior, okay? An inch is made into a mile with Diego Costa. The ability to just roll off defenders, move in the box at that size is something that is so rare, and that is the final ask of Sesko, right? Just as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about it. Yes, he needs to be a target man. Yes, he needs to, make himself known in the box, be that presence, but at the same time, you still have to be nimble. You still have to be smart. You still have to read the game the way any elite striker would. And as we wrap up this video, I guess, Amorim inherited a few things. Like every sacked manager, Ten Hag left a plague on the team. And you saw that plague in his last full season where we do win the FA Cup. The number of shots faced was far too high. We were essentially pressing with half the team and leaving half the team all the way at the back. And you saw that issue for Amorim initially. The cutback issues to the edge of the box were still there. We were conceding a lot of shots. And on top of all of this, you were still seeing centre-backs being dragged out of place. You saw even yesterday, DALOT a couple of times, dragged out wide, and it's not something you want to see your team do too much of. On top of all of that, you have the set piece issue now coming into play. Now I know that's pretty much just on Bayern, right? That corner that Calafiori scores yesterday, but you have to ask yourself, if this is going to be a problem week in, week out, something on the training field is not right. It's not just a personnel issue. You can have one or two bad players, not the goalkeeper. You can have one or two bad players defending set pieces and still make it work. If you can have good set piece coaches, there have to be bad set piece coaches out there. And it feels, honestly, after 2-3 seasons of this set piece issue, that Manchester United does not know set pieces well enough. So I'm happy to pay 4 million for whoever Arsenal hires for this service. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This is what the ask is for whatever you think Manchester United need to get to, whether it's top 6, top 5 now with the Champions League, or winning the league title. If they play 37 more games with the right intensity and some fine tuning from Amorim, which is what he gets paid for, not the individual brilliance, you will see Manchester United get to the finish line, wherever that is. Where do you have them finishing? Please let me know in the comments below. I would say I was thinking like 8th, 9th at the start of the season. After that game, being a fan, it is my duty to give you a more biased response and say, yeah, 4th, 5th. 4th, 5th is very much on the cards. With our one-game sample size, I wrote it in the group chat earlier today, there are only 4 teams that played better than us this week. Sunderland, Spurs, Liverpool, and Manchester City. Okay? And we're never losing to Spurs again. And who knows, it might be Sunderland's time. So I'll take 4th place. Anyways, ciao.